Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's Makala Podcast channel. Makala, meaning branches, Kasisutu. My name is Amanda Masondo and I'm your host. We hope this podcast finds a way to impact, educate, and inspire your next. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. Basically everywhere where you find your podcast fix. Every first and last Friday of every month. Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's Makala Podcast. I am your host, Amanda Masondo. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are listening, it is either the first or the last Friday of the month. Welcome to the evolution. Welcome to the future. This is the fastest growing entrepreneurial podcast in the country. This is numbers proven, data proven. Be a part of the movement, like and subscribe, and join us on this journey. As per usual, I'm bringing you, unique stories of entrepreneurs who are doing amazing work. My guest today is no exception. He is doing, even I am going to be learning on this one. I'm taking notes but on virtual reality, that's a teaser. My guest today, Daliso Ngoma. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
All good, Amanda.
Let's start from the beginning. I don't want to let anybody know. I don't want to tell your story.
Yeah.
Tell me your story. Born and raised from where? Tell me the whole thing.
Well, I would say, I was born in Zambia,
but
then pretty much been in South Africa ever since 1994. So, yeah.
So you've gone through all of it with us. You know all of it. We can't hide anything from you.
So that's primarily been it. Moved around the country and the likes, predominantly been Johannesburg, and then also spent around 7 years in Asia for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how does technology become something that you are interested in?
I think it was ties back to my dad. He actually got me, I think it was a Pentium 2, taught me about computers, even taught me how to actually deconstruct them and the likes. And the rest is history. I've always just been playing with computers, be it that the geek who was always fixing people's phones or computers or whatever it is. Now it's virtual reality, of course. But yeah, that's primarily just been it.
Okay, and then at school, what do you study? What did you study?
So, if we're talking about school, university, that was Bachelor of Science with honors in software engineering.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't want a cushy job in corporate? You said entrepreneurship is where you're going. Why?
So the thing is that, funny enough, my first job was actually at a startup. And then I came back and I was actually thinking of wanting to work at Facebook. I actually applied. They said, hey, we can actually take you on for interviews. But the unfortunate part is that with the H-1B visas, I've forgotten the whole visa process, is that they only do it near to the end of the year.
Okay.
So then my dad was like, why don't you actually just start something of your own? Yeah, started something on my own, and the rest has been history ever since 2017.
My goodness. Yeah. Sure, okay. So basically you didn't even taste corporate, because one is an e-gig, one. No, that's, you don't know, we don't know the struggles there.
I can just, it's like the struggles of a startup, where even when it came to the visa process and all this other stuff, I'm like, it's like even the HR process. So it's like, hey, I'm not too sure, maybe in corporate everything is all good, but when it comes to dealing with a startup, you're like, everything's just up in the air.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about African Technopreneurs.
Yeah.
What is it? If you're talking to somebody who has never heard of technology, who does not know anything to do with virtual reality, anything like that, talk to me like I'm 5. What is it?
We're trying to bring the future present. That's primarily what exactly African Technopreneurs is all about. So I think I've obviously had my exposure of being able to travel and all this other stuff. But I think you always get disappointed when you come back home and you just don't feel like you've got this future tech that people watch on YouTube videos and all this other stuff. And that's predominantly where we've actually been trying to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
So with the company, initially it was web development. I ran the numbers this is not making any sense. And then obviously it just fell to my interest of photography. Yeah. So it was actually 360-degree cameras. I was a bit surprised as I was thinking, this is interesting. So I've got a camera that can actually take a full picture. And then secondly, I'm like, it can actually take a video. So imagine you could actually capture a video that actually captures everything around you all at once, and then being able to replay it be it that it's actually on your phone, and that's when there was a leap towards virtual reality.
Yeah.
So I've got a VR headset, and I can actually feel like I'm actually in the same sort of place. So even with this podcast, right, you can just imagine if the camera was actually in the middle, we recorded, you could actually feel like you were actually immersed in that environment.
So someone can see behind all the way around. I'm not sure. We have things happening at the back, so let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing stuff. So obviously, entrepreneurship now comes with its own game, right?
Yeah.
It's got its own barriers to entry as you're starting, just the admin of getting started.
Yeah.
Did you have to struggle with any of that?
I did. Well, the things that I started off, I think probably around high school, primary school, I was actually selling computer components and such. So it was a case of, firstly, if anybody wanted to buy anything, it would be that they pay 50%.
Okay.
The 50% I would actually just be able to get from my parents. And then when the goods come in, I get the other 50% from the customer and then deliver.
Yeah.
But this was before even having like an e-commerce store and all this other stuff. It was like a forum, if anybody knows, online forums.
Yeah.
Being able to post and such. I even sold on Bid or Buy before it got changed to, is it Pulp Shop?
I think that's what it is, yeah.
So that's primarily just been it. And then, stretching it even towards what I was actually doing before starting the company formally was the fact that I was even bringing in a whole lot of Xiaomi electronics and then selling them in the country. So you can just imagine there was actually around a 6-hour difference between here and Malaysia. So I would actually be talking to my mother, talking to some other guy who could actually sort out the courier guy, shipping and the likes, and then actually talking to customers as well. And this was actually something that I did for quite some time. I think it was in my final year where I said I have to pause the business. But then after that, the rest has been history. So I think partly the reason why I actually just got back into retail sales is because that's pretty much been my bread and butter when growing up, knowing actually how to sell physical goods. Compared to software development, I still love it.
Yeah.
But I think just being able to showcase tech and such, even before we actually started the podcast, just being able to showcase like the Apple Vision Pro, getting a person to be immersed, they get wild and likes. That's primarily been where
I saw you assisting some of my team members here. You yourself were immersed. It's like you were seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's always just been the case. Is that new tech always just fascinates me, and I want people to actually experience it. Again, it's like it just doesn't make any sense for us to wait 5 years later to experience something that was already brought 5 years ago.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. That also includes now that your business is going to grow, right? From it just being you're used to managing everything yourself, from sales to marketing to everything yourself. Now you have a team. Now you have to manage people.
Yeah.
How has that transaction been?
It's a very different skill set. I think when you're doing things by yourself, it's quite easy. I think you necessarily expect that, hey, when I do this, that happens. So for instance, when it comes to TechLot, I still remember the days I used to work out of Starbucks.
Yeah.
I'd be there on the computer, orders come through, get them fulfilled, drive to the office, pack the boxes, and then get them shipped.
Yeah.
So now imagine you have a team and having to make sure that they actually understand the intricacies that you've actually gone through, making sure that shipments are actually left on time, even basic things like, for example, with our online store, customer places an order. For me, typically what would happen is that I see the order, pick up the phone to say, hey, thank you so much, customer, and thank you for your support. I just want to find out, firstly, where did you actually find out about us? And what's the reason why you're actually buying this particular item?
Yeah.
So that's primarily just been it. So I think managing people, it's just on the basis that entrepreneurship is very different. So most of the times, especially if you are a business owner, you should actually be paying yourself last. For anybody who's actually paying themselves first as a business owner, I would be your priorities are probably quite skewed. But that's pretty much just been it. I think you go through those struggles, and it's not to say that you want to show all this doom and gloom, but the mere fact is that I think just getting people meshed into the vision that you've actually got.
Yeah.
So I think if you're young, the reality is that you shouldn't actually be looking at your paycheck to begin with. It should be the fact that you want to get as much experience as possible. Because once that experience builds up, there's that old saying, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. And that's primarily it. It's been 7 years, maybe in the next 3 years it might be an overnight success. But that's been it. And then also just managing people's expectations. I think people, sometimes they're single, sometimes they're in their relationships and all this other stuff. So you end up being the head psychologist in the organization as well.
Yeah. So HR, sales, marketing, all of the things all in one.
Yeah. So the thing is that it even just brings up the story earlier today. that I'm thinking, I don't even want to be involved in the accounting system, but I have to understand how the system works, because if I bring in someone who needs to do this, that at least we're all on the same page, rather than a person saying, oh yeah, I've done the job, and then all of a sudden the job is actually not done, and then you're getting a variety of calls from the likes of SARS and all this other stuff. Yeah.
So which department, you can tell me,
Yeah.
no one has to know about it.
Yeah.
Which department would you choose not to do if you could? I mean, it's your business, you have to know everything, but if you could choose one and you're just like, this one, can somebody else?
It's the accounts department. Sorry to say. As in, like, for instance, I did that in high school. It was, what, grade 10, 11, and 12?
Yeah.
So, of course, that was like manual journals written down on paper and the
Yes.
likes. And now, obviously, you've got systems where you don't even have to use Excel. You use Xero, Sage, QuickBooks, or whatever it is. But that's just a part of the business where I'm just like, yo, I would prefer that this is actually automated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about entrepreneurship now. If you were to define it according to what you think it is, what would it be, and versus what you thought it was before you entered?
I think it's all about problem solving. So problem solving that actually turns into a profit. Ideally so, because I think if you're problem solving and you're actually not making a profit, then you end up actually running a charity. Nothing wrong with that, or you're in government, and there's nothing wrong with that. With government, of course, I think the emphasis is not so much towards wanting to make a profit, but serving the people. And sometimes that actually comes at a cost. Whilst when it comes to running a business, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to realize that the lifeblood is profit. If you're not making any profits, unfortunately, so even the people who actually work with you might actually not find themselves employed in one from another. So I think when I started, it was just on the basis that I was a team of one. And that was a case of, I thought people knew what was actually going in my head. Now when you're running the business, you actually have to get people to actually understand what you're trying to put out there. And sometimes you might think it's like, the person doesn't know what they're doing in one from another. Up until you actually show them and get them to see it from your point of view. Not to say that they need to see all the aspects of actually running the business. But that's primarily it. Where I think, I think some days I'm actually even just a glorified... I'm not too sure, switchboard in a way. Where, for instance, the amount of calls that I would actually be getting, and you're just like having to deal with one customer, deal with one supplier, dealing with like an employee, or dealing with a colleague, and actually having to route that information around amongst everybody. So you're the chief admin of the institution, essentially. And also having to provide the vision and all that other stuff.
100%, Okay. Let's talk about technology, right? If you were to ask South African entrepreneurs whether or not they incorporate technology in their businesses, whether it's digital, whether it's just social media, whether at any level, it does seem to be something that they consider lost. What would you say? Why do you think technology is important for you to implement in your business as it's growing?
It's probably the biggest leverage that you've got, or lever, in terms of being able to do a whole lot of things. It still comes to the fact that you need to know how to use that tech. Because even like with AI and the likes, I understand here you can use Claude.ai or ChatGPT. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, you're still going to get to the wrong answer. Similar to the fact of, for instance, even before AI, it was the fact of actually having to know how to Google, right? If you can Google the right answers, you'll find YouTube videos, probably blogs, probably articles that people have actually written that gets you to the answer that actually resolves the problem that you've actually got. So I think, again, technology is always going to be there. It's just the fact of actually knowing how to actually use that technology. And I think even just being able to realize that you have to be done. You're better off being done for 5 minutes compared to being done for 5 years. Just by the fact of putting yourself out there, and you're going to get a whole lot of rejection. A lot of people are not going to want to help you. But soon enough, you knock on enough doors, someone will actually answer and actually be like, well, this is the solution. Maybe try this, maybe try that. And actually just realizing that, hey, there are always going to be people who want to help you out, but also on the basis that you can't think that everybody is in it to actually assist you in that regard. But technology, it's an amplifier. As an anthem today, you go into social media, you put out a simple message, even like with the podcast, right? It gets published onto, let's just say, Apple Podcasts, onto YouTube. You don't know who exactly might be listening or even watching, and how it actually impacts them as well.
100%. Let's maybe touch on I wanted to touch on AI, but I will come back to it. we will circle back, but I wanted to get a sense of who your customer base is, right? I mean, you've been in business for a while now.
Yeah.
You've probably identified that these people, if you were to close your eyes and go sell to these people, absolutely, without a doubt, they know what you're talking about. They know that this is the business that you offer. Who would you say is your clientele, and what has been the changes that you've seen?
It's been interesting with the clientele that we have. I think one of the interesting segments has been like architecture.
Yeah.
Where quite a lot of these guys buy the headsets to obviously create 3D renders of like a house and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And being able to put on a VR headset and actually even go around an apartment or a house or a building and such. The other part has also been construction. So especially if there is phases of the construction that you want to document, being able to use the 360 cameras and the likes. Then there has also just been the fact of training. So be it that, for example, people want to be doing tree felling training in one from another, or be it that it's training within like a Vodacom shop in one from another, where you could actually put on the headset and there's a 360 video playing, there's an interaction with the customer and all this other stuff. And then I think a big segment has also been gaming. Yeah. Quite a lot of people just buying this for gaming. So I think that's where, if you've ever watched the movie Ready Player One, that it's all gaming, and that's what people think VR is all about. But the reality is that you can actually use it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but you can actually use it for a variety of applications within your life. Because again, is that you think of like AirPods. Best way to actually have your hi-fi in your ears. Yeah. But now you can just imagine VR or whatever iteration might play out, the best screen in the world that you can actually wear.
Sure. Okay. And if I'm an SME and I don't know that I need your product or your service offering, right? Yeah. Which do you want to identify sectors, or do you want to say, if you're a small business, this is what this technology can actually do for your business?
Sure. Okay. So with my tech is very niche, depending on what you're actually trying to look at. I think even if I were to look at these, so like the Ray-Ban Metas, as in I put them on, I necessarily can hold down the button. It is actually going to start recording. Yeah. And the things that obviously with these lenses, they're more sunglass lenses, right? But you can actually get clear prescriptions as well. And the mirror is that you can just imagine, if it's a wedding and the likes, you don't actually have to have a full-blown camera in front of you. You can actually capture those point of view moments just using these. Okay. So yeah, like with that, it was quite simple. Didn't take that much time. I think with these, you can actually get like around 3 hours of coverage. Okay. But yeah, there's a variety of applications. So I think with the 360 cameras, especially for instance, people don't know what your location looks like. Yes. You can use that to take a picture, upload it onto Google Maps. So at least, for example, people can actually get an updated layout of where exactly you stay and even what your place looks like. Yeah. Then with the virtual reality, it really depends. I wouldn't necessarily say that would apply that much for small businesses, but I think it would still be an application that if, for instance, you're mapping out an area, maybe you might actually be a real estate agent, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, you could actually take pictures, get a person to actually come to your offices, put on the same headsets, and they can actually view the house without actually being in the house itself. Yeah.
And that would be very helpful. See, I like to view houses just for fun. Yeah. So this would be really beneficial for me if property agents did that.
True.
Amazing. True. Okay. All right. Let's go back to AI here. What are we saying here? What are we? Yeah. People have got a very anti kind of feeling around AI. Do you see opportunity, or do you see the downfall of mankind as we know it?
I think, for me at least, with what most people talk of AI is more this generative AI, where it's actually learned on a whole lot of media and one from another, and that's what I think most people actually play towards. As to its downfall, I don't know. As in, it's just one of those things where I understand that there's also the copyright aspect of it, where, for example, what have you actually learned on, per se? So you can just imagine, it's like I could actually prompt to say, let's actually make an African Super Mario, right? Yeah. So the thing is that how is it actually going to know who Super Mario is? It actually has to take it from somewhere. But quite a lot of it has actually been quite useful. Yeah. So even like with Claude AI, be it that I've actually written a whole executive report, I could actually get it compressed to like a short tweet. Yeah. Or for instance, I can actually expand on it. Or for instance, I can actually even ask it to do a grammatical check. Or, for instance, even being able to ask questions to be like, what are the things that I should actually be looking out for? So you can just imagine, we always hear this situation when it comes to musicians and the likes where they don't read their contracts. If they know how to use AI, they could literally chuck in their contract and actually ask it questions to say, what are the things that I should be watching out for before I actually sign off on this?
Yes, that would be amazing because our entertainment industry can just check those contracts because we're hearing too many stories.
Yeah,
that's sure. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned in the beginning, right, talking about how you got started. I mean, it doesn't sound like you struggled getting started the company itself, right? But are you finding that you're seeing many more tech-centered companies doing what you do? Or is it still pretty much still niche and it's still growing at a snail pace?
Yeah, this is I actually operate off of a farm. So the thing is that
so you're the one that's isolating yourself.
Yeah. I think it's just on the basis that, of course, it has reduced the amount of money that we have to spend, be it that it's offices and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But with tech companies, I don't know. As in, I think with most of them, it would be more software based.
Yeah.
With ourselves, we're in a bit of a unique position, and that's why for anybody who actually does join the team, is that you now have to understand the import-export market.
Yeah.
So sometimes I actually just simplify what I do as an import-export business.
Yeah.
Just on that vertical. Of course, there is the tech component, but I would love to actually find more people getting into the space. Of course, apparel, when it comes to clothing and one from another, is actually an easy avenue. But tech, it's not something that I think everybody would be familiar with, but the reality, we even talk of like AI, you'll be very surprised that you can actually speed run quite a lot of people who spend probably years in the same industry. But I think the same saying also goes is that if you can't explain what you're doing to someone, sometimes it means that you don't even understand it yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about something. Let's dream a little bit.
Yeah.
You and I, just you and I. How do we get the stuff to schools? How do we get government to buy into it and get virtual reality at schools and utilize it as a teaching model?
Yeah. I'm not too sure. No, it's not to say I wouldn't want to get it into schools and the likes, but I think it's just that opening where someone might give someone a chance. I've got one friend, Baso, he's actually done quite a lot of like AR educational content. And that was actually just using like a tablet and all this other stuff. He's actually now gotten into virtual reality as well. But I think it's just the fact of young African entrepreneurs, South African entrepreneurs, just being given the chance to actually showcase what they can actually bring to the table. So I think it's the fact that both hands actually have to shake and see that, for instance, this is not an enemy of progress. It's an accelerator of it. Because you can just imagine, the more people are educated, the more we can actually flourish in terms of the value that we can actually bring to the ecosystem. So again, is that I think we have to look at the fact that even kids right now, if they can't actually go all the way to the Kruger National Park, why not just get them into virtual reality headsets? They can have a similar experience. And at least when they actually acclimatize to actually being in that environment, it's a different story. Same thing even with dissecting and all this other stuff. I don't know what would be the best avenue, but I think it's just the fact that teachers somewhat also have to be technocrats, being able to see that tech is there to actually make their life so much easier, to empower the next generation. So in terms of getting in, I don't know. But I'd love to actually just get people
let's make some phone calls. Let's coordinate Makala Podcast, signing deals. I think it's a great idea that it should actually be explored some more. I just thought of a thing now. I think when I have children, what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna call you up, buy a few things, and then we'll just say we are going on holiday, but it's virtually. You
might be surprised. They might feel like they're actually right there.
Because no one has the money for these flights, but virtually anything is attainable.
True.
I see it. I see a future. Amazing stuff. Okay, so let's plan future-wise. What's going on? What are you guys planning for the future?
So I think it's just a 3-step process: distribution, assembly, and then manufacturing.
Okay.
So distribution has just been probably the key stone for the company. That if we know how to distribute to any particular sector of South Africa and also within the whole country as well. even breaching into the rest of the continent. Then at least, for example, we can now get into the second step, which is assembly. So at least, for example, we can actually assemble things that, of course, are being mass produced and the likes. Third step, manufacturing, would be the fact that we are now actually building our own stuff from scratch and being able to see as to how things go. Maybe the manufacturing would still play with the factor of like the likes of China and such.
Yeah.
But at least it would just be the fact that instead of actually us always just adopting technology, that we're actually now the creators of that technology.
100%.
Yeah.
And then are you finding that doing business in other parts of the African continent or the globe, what are some of the differences that you've witnessed there?
It's not that hard.
There's not much differences,
It's just more of a case of, I think, especially when you're dealing with hardware or at least physical products, it's actually having to understand the likes of HS codes or tariff codes. Because again, is that when things are actually being shipped to another country, they need to classify as to what that item is.
Okay.
And that obviously carries a certain amount of duties and then also taxes as well. So that hasn't been that hard. The amount of people that we've actually had, even within the SADC region, has been quite prominent, where people would actually say, hey, I want to buy A, B, C, D, and E, and we can actually organize being able to get the things shipped to them. I think the next frontier that we're probably still trying to tap through, which would be software development.
Yeah. And
that's just still something that we're playing around with. So even like with the Apple Vision Pro, we have already been able to develop one application called Universe Unveiled. So that was actually done by one of our in-house software engineers, Given.
Okay.
And being able to just test it. So you can just imagine we didn't even have the headset. It only just got launched, I think, in February this year.
Okay.
But he was able to actually do development in like December last year. Not even having the headset in front of him and just being able to actually have something that we can actually just put out there. But it has not been the hardest of things to deal with the rest of the continent. I don't know as to if there are particular difficulties per se, but I think, again, business is actually just about interactions and actually being able to meet a need and making sure that, for instance, that need is being met and often being paid for it.
We love to hear that, because we're always hearing stories about how difficult it is doing business with, with your African countries and your counterparts. But it sounds like it can be done.
It can be. It's not to say that it isn't.
Maybe it's just tech-wise it can be done.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the sector. As in, at least with tech, I haven't had much of like a whole pushback per se.
Yeah.
The amount of times people have actually bought tech and the likes, and we've actually been able to get things sorted, is typically when it comes to the border. And that's when they're asking a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
But from that, I haven't actually really seen that much of a struggle per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 3 lessons on your journey so far. I'm sure you can write a book. I don't want the thesis. I want the shorter version, the AI edited version of your lessons so far. Stuff you wish you knew and you know now, and then stuff that you think, actually, this was easier than I thought.
I think the first lesson that I wish I actually knew back then was the hiring of people. That it's a bit unfortunate, but the fact of running a business that you should actually hire slow, fire fast. But that also comes with the fact of making sure that they are key performance indicators. It can also be, is it OKRs? I've forgotten what the acronym stands for. But being able to just measure people, because the reality is that when you bring people in, they're also expecting you to provide some sort of leadership. Because I think one of those lessons has also been the fact that I thought that you can just bring people in, they'll actually understand what's in your head in terms of how you actually want to run the business. The second one is that you need to have a huge handle on your costs.
Yeah.
When you're going through bad times, the one thing that you can control is your costs. Even if you're not bringing in a whole lot of revenue, but at least being able to keep your costs as low as possible can actually allow for there to be a rainy day fund that you can actually use whenever there is a bad patch.
Yeah.
And then the third one is it's the fact that one should always still be optimistic. I think even though like the country has gone through a whole lot of doom and gloom, but optimism, as much as like, for example, if you're pessimistic, you're most likely going to be right most of the time, right? But being optimistic actually pushes you to actually still see that you wake up in the morning, you're like thinking, oh my word, I've got payroll, I've got these bills, I've got people to talk to, I'm seeing messages that are actually coming through, but just knowing that there is a path to actually being able to unlock things. So I think it's just the fact of the first one, which would be managing people. The second one, controlling costs. And then the third one, just being optimistic. If you're not optimistic, I think you shouldn't even start a business.
Close shop. Party close shop. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Daliso, knowing what you know today, would you do it all again? Or do you want that comfy corporate job I mentioned earlier?
The thing is that I have those days where, you wake up and you're like thinking, it's like, I would wish that at least I know I'm giving a set of instructions. I know at the end of the month I'll actually get that paycheck.
Yeah.
But I think it also just removes that freedom of choosing your destiny, per se. So if I were to do things again, I don't really know. As in, I think probably learning the lessons that I've actually learned right now would probably be way more beneficial rather than actually repeating them if I were like 60 or 70 or 80. So the thing is that it has actually provided me with more gray hairs than I would have expected. But I think I would actually still repeat it again. As in, as much as there was a whole lot of hardship and all this other stuff, there was still joy in the journey, to be quite frank. I think it just doesn't make any sense to actually try and change anything in the past and say, well, if I didn't do this, this would have been the outcome. But hey, I'm actually, even though it's still a struggle, but I still enjoy it. Yeah.
That is all that matters. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just take us into your confidence a little bit. What are some of the things that you are excited about that are coming up, that you're seeing as things that are coming up in this sector that you think are going to be industry disruptors?
I think the first one is Apple being able to make VR mainstream. It's not to say that Meta hasn't actually doubled their feet in the water of actually trying to get things going.
Yeah.
But Apple just has the retail footprint of being able to just expose people to the latest of tech.
Okay.
So the thing is that, like with Meta, they've still just had the strategy where they want to control as to how they actually sell things to the market, right? Whilst with Apple, it's been the fact that even when this is more towards like a holiday trip, I was actually in Singapore, right? I was actually in Malaysia for a friend's wedding, but going into the Apple store, the amount of people who are just there just to play around with this Apple Vision Pro, and I'm like thinking, it's like, I know that they're not buying it, but the member is that Apple is just indoctrinating people to just like try this thing out.
Yeah.
And soon enough, you can just imagine now when it actually comes to like a mass market price point, right? The amount of people who are actually already going to be like, wow, I already know what this is all about. It's like a test drive into the future. The other thing is, like, I think with this AI situation, it's just very interesting. I don't know, as in, obviously ChatGPT came like a year or so ago, and of course it was like, wow, this is amazing, but there wasn't so much like, wow, this will actually help me with work, as in there were a few edge cases, right?
Yeah.
But now with the way that things are actually going, I'm like, wow, this will actually do a whole lot. You can just imagine, it could be anything from, let's just say, I want to actually take care of my houseplants in one from another.
Yeah.
And just being able to take a picture and it gives you a step-by-step recommendation. Maybe the condition of the plant has actually changed. You take a picture, is able to actually do that for you. And even the fact that, for instance, a person who might not necessarily have thought that they could be a coder can now necessarily use that to get a whole lot done. And then I think just the fact that it's a bit interesting. It's like a race to zero with quite a lot of things. So if you think about like solar and all this other stuff, we obviously do have ESCOM and the likes. But if everybody actually has like a solar panel and all this other stuff, you're going to pay for the initial costs of the equipment.
Yeah.
But then essentially you're not paying for anything else. Maybe you might actually change the batteries, but your costs actually now get reduced to such an extent that, for example, you don't have to rely that much on that. So the same thing even with education. If AI is going the way that I can see things going, essentially you'll be thinking, but why exactly am I actually paying to actually be educated if I can actually use the tools to actually get that done? And I think, like with anything else, it would be the fact that one can still rely on other parties to actually assist. But even like with e-commerce, as in, to a large degree, you don't even have to even have your own workforce when it comes to like your couriers, warehousing, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
You even see like Amazon's already come into the country. So you're thinking there are a variety of things which are actually just coming to a point where it's like things are just getting cheaper. All you just now have to put most of your energy towards would be what would be the best idea in the market. It might sound crazy, but literally now everybody can actually do whatever they want. It's like even with Shein, right? Temu, right? As in things are getting cheaper and cheaper coming into the country. So it's like who exactly has the best idea that can actually propagate within whatever sphere that they're actually in.
Yeah. Sure. Exciting times. So guys, but basically, I'm hearing you say, do not be opposed to technology, guys. Technology is your friend. Technology is it's a learning curve. Everything's a learning curve, and it's here to assist us to do better.
Everything's technology. It's like even the cameras that we're using, they're technology. Even the iPad that you're using is technology. Even the watch that you've got is technology. Everything. As in even the car that you drive is technology. So to be scared of the thing that actually gets you from A to B, it's kind of weird. But as in, of course, there will be that resistance. But again, technology can either be used for good or bad. It really depends on how you actually use it.
Okay. For people who are looking to get hold of you, how do they get in touch?
So that can be africantechno.com. I've taken a bit of a hiatus on X, Twitter, or even social media, but it'll be DJ Ngoma. So you use that handle on any platform you actually find me. But if anything, you'll probably find me at the next tech meetup and showcasing as to the tech that we've actually got here. But hey, regardless, just shoot me a message. I understand I might be busy, but you might be very surprised. As in, if I'm bored, I actually do reply. But I'm always just one to actually push us forward, especially in SA, where you think that people think, oh, but this technology is not accessible right now. I would actually want that we can actually be the first ones to touch it, or even the first ones to even make it.
100%. Love it. Right. Well, I'm inspired. I learned a lot today. I'm about to endeavor in this little machine over here so that I can go to Bali because I've earned it. Ladies and gentlemen, Daliso Ngoma. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. Cool.